Well, I'd like to call to order this Planning and Development Committee. And the first order of business is a declaration of pecuniary interest. I'll remind you of your responsibility. And declared then this morning we have two information items, and the first one is a County Geographical Information System update. And I'll turn it over to our director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the committee might recall, back a number of years ago, we sort of restructured the department, and part of that was to see if we could take our existing GIS staff and resources and put that more towards a broader corporate use. Traditionally, it was within the planning department serving a planning function and also doing tourism work and so on and work for local municipalities. But the challenge was to expand out that function and look at a broader way of serving the bigger corporate needs. So as a result of that, we've held a number of different staff meetings internally and consulted with our partners. And this is the report in terms of some of the directions that we'll be seeking out in terms of some of the work that we're currently doing. So I'd like to introduce you to Justin Kramer. And some of you probably know Justin. He's been with the county for quite some time working within GIS. And he is a member of the Corporate Policy Division and located out of the Wyerton office. So I'll turn it over to Justin to give a review of what we're up to and where we're heading.
Okay, thank you, Chris. What I wanted to just go over was some highlights of what was in the report here, and what we're really focusing on here is the fact how municipal GIS is enabling organization-wide collaboration, and we want to take better advantage of it. It's become a key conduit for centralized information and decision-making, and so far, as Chris has said, we've focused largely on planning stuff, but in 2014, the operations review said we need to take better advantage of key existing assets such as GIS, and so we've set about on a path to improving that. One of the things that I want to highlight in this report here is some of what we've accomplished with GIS so far, and right back to the beginning in 2001, soon after that we started Bruce County Map Factory, which was used from 2003 through 2016 with over 750,000 logins to it. So it was highly successful. The system that has succeeded from that one is Bruce County Maps, which started in 2015 and carries on through present. We've got 5 versions of that so far: the general public one, the authorized user one for land use planning that's both public and internal, and a commercial industrial lands system, and a sign inventory management app. So we've got in the public version, we have planning data plus the roads and parcels, air photos, rivers, lakes, wooded areas, wetlands, contour lines, and all that stuff. The authorized user one has all the same, but with full assessment details and special privileges on certain layers, so that layers that only planners are legally allowed to see, only they can see those. The land use planning site is a single site that combines all of the public site and the authorized site into one, so but has more focus on the planning data itself, because ultimately I want to have more use-specific applications, so that's not all layers in one site. So the planning data will eventually disappear from the general purpose site. The land use planning site is unique in that it's both public and internal, so when you're not logged in, you don't see owner names and specific layers that are not available to the public, but you can log in and see all that. Then it's much easier to maintain when it's one site with 2 levels of privilege. The commercial industrial lands app has been useful for identifying where there is land available when people are looking to put in a business or industry, and the sign inventory management app was really helpful to the highways team this year to document what signs are out there on the roads, what condition they're in, and they got about 1/3 of the way through all of the regulatory and warning signs this year. Another great achievement of GIS since the last few years is the Bruce Local GIS Steering Committee, and through that I've been able to involve reps of each of the 8 local municipalities in 3 meetings a year. We all take turns hosting, so it moves around the county. I chair those meetings, and it's enabled enhanced GIS capability at the lower tiers, and also improved GIS at the county. And the fact that we had this group was the critical component that enabled Esri Incorporated to say, yes, you can have an enterprise software license for our software that extends to both upper and lower tier. So that was a significant achievement that was really thanks to that group that proved to Esri Incorporated that we take GIS seriously in Bruce County. What that's done is it's meant that software is no longer an obstacle to, software cost is no longer an obstacle to GIS work at the lower tier because it's all covered by the county. It's also possible that the county can now have software that we could have never justified before because it's much cheaper under the enterprise license. So I'm really happy about that. Another significant achievement of the Bruce Local GIS Steering Committee is the summer student hiring program that I started very early on. And what that's done is it's enabled municipalities to have a summer student who studies GIS in university or college to do some initial work on GIS, and that has actually led to some municipalities to hiring a full-time GIS person, so that's really cool. Another interesting improvement in GIS capabilities is the inclusion of real estate listings. That's something that Simcoe County has had for a lot of years. Grey County had it more recently, and we've added that on now too. So every night a script automatically downloads the latest real estate listings and puts them on our map. So you always know that what you see on our system is current. Another benefit of this MLS, well, the Realtors Association of Grey Bruce Owen Sound, they have offered to help me develop user support information. Right now there's not really any help on there. So they are going to work with me to develop some training for that. So that's a really good outcome of that. And as far as the next steps, we just want to start working with other departments. An example of where we've already done that is the sign inventory management system. There will be a demonstration of that at the GIS Day event, which is in the next subject of this meeting. And I think that's all I had to say. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Paul?
Thank you for the presentation. It's very supportive of you moving forward with the GIS project, but just don't like to see duplication for sure. Have you had an opportunity, or Chris or anyone, to talk to where are the conservation authorities with this? I know I have no idea what Saugeen Valley is doing, but I sit on the Grey Sauble board, and I'm saying we have 1 and maybe 1.5 staff people working on upgrading the GIS at the Conservation Authority level, and I would hope whatever they're doing, we're not duplicating, or yet we can work together somehow.
Well, we do work closely with them. We work on different data sets. They have different jurisdiction than we do, so we don't map the same things they do. So that's how we keep out of each other's hair that way, but we also rely on data that they produce, and they rely on data we produce. So it's somewhat symbiotic, I think.
What data do they rely on from you, Justin?
They really like our parcel mapping better than the provincial one. That's the big one that they say it's way better than what the province has. So,
Good, thank you.
Just a question on that. The mapping, so we've got, when you have the mapping there, and often to a land use planning application, some things will change on it. Do we update those maps then,
yes,
based on those?
The data gets updated every night.
Does it? Great. One other one I go, you talk about credential-based access to archaeological sites, so those aren't available to the public.
That's one of the layers that only the planners are allowed to see.
I guess then my next question is, I know we often ask for archaeological studies on pieces of property as part of a planning process. Once it's been cleared, then is there a record of that so that we don't come back 5 years from now in a different application and demand another archaeological study on that? So to say, this has been cleared as per this study.
Yeah, that's not something I can answer.
Okay.
If the property has been cleared, so typically if a assessment goes to the phase 1, then it's assigned a board number, and then the board number is registered on through the Ministry of, I don't even know what's called anymore, citizenship. It's the one that takes care of archaeology, and then so those records are updated to the map. And then so when we screen an application, we'll see any known sites that are there, and then whether they've been, they'll have the Borden number. You can't necessarily access the actual document itself. About 2 years ago, we had a meeting with the ministry because the Borden inventory, there's about 30% of the records are actually missing. They're paper copies. And so advocating the ministry to update those. And so the reason it's protected is so that people don't go looking for sites and try to find things across the country. So
I think that deals directly with sites, but I mean, more often, in most cases, we do studies and don't find anything. And so, I mean, I guess my question is there a way to make sure that some 7 or 8 years or 5 years down the road when there's a different application, or maybe that we don't say, yes, we're going to make you do another archaeological study?
yes, because they're still registered. They're still has a board number. So even if it goes to a simple stage 1, it says there's nothing there, we don't need to look any further, then that's on the map. Yep.
Thank you. Any other, Ann? Go ahead, Ann.
So when you say the planning staff can only see certain layers, does that apply to our local lower tier planning staff as well? They have access to the same layers?
We've been given specific, actually not even all the planners can, it's just specific individuals that I've been given the name of, that just those people can see them. So not even everyone in planning can see that. So I don't know how that extends to the lower tier. That's not anything that's ever been asked of me so far.
Okay. I would just kind of like to know the answer to that. Just, is it extended to, say, the director of building and planning at the lower tiers? Like, even that one person?
Okay, that's something we can look into.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if I might say, for archaeology, or all the layers?
Or as needed?
Yeah, so for archaeology, it's fairly simple. They have a training. It's a half-day training or a one-day training. You go for the training, you sign the agreement, and then you can get access. And so even if it's not, you can get access through our system. I would suggest if a member of a local municipality had that agreement signed, then we potentially allow access, but they can get access from Land Information Ontario because it shows up on the LEO layer as well if you have access. In terms of general views, what Justin's trying to do is provide something for different user groups where you can turn the layers off and on. It's the information they need for their daily practice. So for example, for your municipality, you can turn it on, you can see the impact information assessment and so on. So yours is a more of a detailed view than simply the public view.
Mills?
Yeah, the potential sites for archaeology is supplied by the Ministry of Citizenship and Culture, or is that, who supplies that information, Chris?
Again, I'm jumping on Justin, more of a planning question. There is no information. What happens is if there's a proposed development, then the PPS and the county plan says you have to try to protect archaeological resources. And so there's a checklist or a screening for that, and then one of the triggers is you look on the map, and if there's a known archaeological site within a certain distance from that, then it would kick in for a stage 1 review. That's kind of how that would work. So some of the factors are known archaeological sites, distance from water. That one's been problematic, but we've actually refined the water layer to look at only major water courses, understanding that the importance of water was likely for food, for fishing, and for travel. And so we've eliminated almost all the smaller creeks and streams from it. So that's the one we've been able to refine and get away with. But there's still those other triggers that could trigger potential review. So that's, did I answer your question? Okay.
So the known sites are supplied by
The ministry, yeah.
municipal drains, are they're gone?
Yes, it may have had another trigger. It may have had another trigger than the drain. We can, yeah, it could have been, that may not have been the trigger. It's unlikely the trigger, but it was a Judges Creek, because that would be potentially Stokes River would be a trigger, because at one time it would have been, it has fish habitat and for the purposes of travel. So it likely remains on our water layer. I can bring back, just for information purposes, the checklist and then how we've treated the water layer, just so you'll know how we deal with it on an application by application basis. It's very controversial, as the chair has said. And many times we look and there's really nothing, absolutely nothing on the property. But it's that obligation. I've been in a situation before in Southampton, feeling it's an area of existing development. We waived the requirements for the archaeological assessment, and as it turns out, we get the call, and of course there's a village. Somebody knows there's a village. I didn't know there was a village, and there's a major archaeological site. And so after getting my fingers burned a little bit, I thought, okay, we need to sort of do more, pay more attention to the actual triggers on the checklist. And the only one we've been able to put a Bruce County flavor on was the water layer. We used what was called Strawler's stream order to eliminate some of the small feeder creeks and streams, recognizing that they weren't likely used for food or travel. But it makes reference to historic travel routes. You know, and a lot of these things we don't have mapped. There is a process where you can undertake an archaeological master plan that refines the maps, and it requires First Nations participation as well to turn over some of that information, because they know things that we don't know in relation to settlement.
Any further questions? Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Put Justin back up.
Is he going back up?
Yeah. Hey, Justin, you're going back up. Okay.
All right, the next item then is an invitation to a GIS Day, November the 15th, 2017. And again, Justin's going to give us the news.
Yes, well, GIS Day is an event that was first established in 1999. It's celebrated year-round as a way to promote what GIS is to people who don't know what it is, or who are only vaguely familiar or are familiar but want to see more about what you can do with GIS. We've once before held a GIS Day in Bruce County 2 years ago in Saugeen Shores, and it went really well. Last year we had some trouble getting it together, but this year we're going to do it again in Saugeen Shores, so it's very good of them to offer their location. There's so many different, as I said, there's so many different ways you can that you can use GIS. It would be really worthwhile for all of you to come to this. We're hoping to invite staff from every municipality and council, and also there's been talk of inviting members of the public to this as well. And if that happens, we may end up using the Rotary Hall at the Plex rather than council chambers, but we'll see based on RSVP response how that plays out. The major takeaways from this event will be the solutions for improved asset management, how story maps can improve communication with residents, how mobile apps improve workflow and can solve municipal problems, and how to use reports from GIS for better budgeting and capital planning. So I would like to cordially invite all of you to attend that day. There is an attachment of the poster that shows where to RSVP. It might be moved to Rotary Hall.
It's in the same building, it's just
Same
upstairs.
building, yeah.
It's in the same building, yeah. It's a municipal office. Well, I hope we get enough people that we have to move it upstairs.
So we have library that morning, so we could slip, don't we, the 15th? It's a Wednesday.
Do we?
So we do, we have library that day, so yeah, I'll be going.
Okay,
Mark
good.
me down.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Yeah, and this one starts it's in the afternoon, so if that. Oh, okay, that's why leaving early. Okay, yeah, I understand.
CAO, did you have a question, comment? No? Okay. So, yeah, I hope we have to move it upstairs. You'll have a big crowd.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Justin? If not, then I guess that's the end of our agenda. So our next meeting will be November the 16th, 2017, and I'll take a motion to adjourn. Mitch and Ann, all in favor or adjourn?